Welcome back, Sebastian here. Today I'm going to be doing my preview for the 2024 Mexican Grand Prix. So as always, starting out with last year's race. So last year, of course, was won by Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton finished second, and third was Charles Leclerc. After that, just kind of talking about some notable moments from that race. So obviously we had the big moment at the first corner where Sergio Perez crashed out of his home Grand Prix. Made a very aggressive move around the outside of turn one, tried to go around the outside of Charles Leclerc, not able to successfully make the move, makes contact with Leclerc and was out with damage after that. Also, that race, we had a red flag after Kevin Magnussen's Haas. The suspension basically failed, and he went careening into the barriers quite hard. And that, of course, led to quite a bit of barrier damage, and that brought out the red flag. We also had a comeback from Lando Norris, starting, I believe, 17th on the grid. He was able to climb back up to fifth. So a good recovery drive from Lando Norris in last year's race. Now, taking a look at the circuit itself, we have 3 DRS zones around this track. Of course, the one down the main straights from turn 17 up into turn 1. Realistically, that's your best spot for an overtake, but you can also make a move on the straight between turn 3 and turn 4, going into that turn 4. The rest of sector 2, not really an overtaking zone. The S is too high speed, and then of course you have your final DRS zone between turn 11 and turn 12, but that straight is too short and it's too difficult to follow through sector 2. So again, not really an overtaking spot before you get to sector 3, which is really just the stadium section. So again, turn 1, like I said, a good spot for overtaking. This is where, of course, Max Verstappen made his really good move in 2021, going from third on the grid, getting past both Mercedes in a race that proved to be quite crucial in the championship challenge. Also, we had 2022, so a couple years ago, Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll battling on track at turn 4, and this, of course, was a failed move by Gasly to try to get past Stroll, and I believe he ended up getting a 5-second penalty for, I think it was overtaking off track. And given all the controversy we had last weekend about overtaking off track and that kind of thing, we'll see if that particular corner again continues to be an issue next year. So moving on to just some information about the circuit. It's 4.304 kilometers, so one of the shorter tracks on the calendar. And on Sunday, we're expected to have 71 laps. Race lap record of 1:17.774 set by Valtteri Bottas in 2021. The average speed of that fastest lap is 199 kilometers an hour, which ranks 22nd out of the 24 tracks on the calendar. Also, pole conversion rate's 38%, so not one of the lower ones, and that's just from 2015 to now, so it doesn't include when it was on the track, when it was on the F1 calendar in the 80s. Of course, another particular characteristic of this track is in Mexico City. I believe it's the highest track above sea level, and as such, the air is very, very thin. The common saying goes that the cars need to have Monaco level. Basically, they need to have Monaco level spec wings, front, rear, setup, that kind of thing, in order to achieve Monza levels of downforce. So a very unique circuit. Not a whole lot of comparables with it elsewhere on the calendar. I guess the only other ones would be Austria and Brazil, which are also relatively high altitude. And as a result, because you have air so thin, it does tend to stress the engines quite a bit. This is a track where we can see a fair number of reliability issues on the engines. I remember 2017 where it felt every single Renault-powered car, except Max Verstappen's, basically busted itself that particular race. All right, so moving on to the weather for the weekend schedule and the weather. So Friday, again, normal weekend, so FP1, FP1 12:30 in the afternoon, FP2 4 in the afternoon. The weather for that FP2 session is 23 degrees and partially cloudy. Into Saturday, FP3 11:30 in the morning, and qualifying will be in 3 in the afternoon. The weather for that qualifying session, 21 degrees and partially cloudy. So a pretty cool weekend all around in Mexico City this weekend. Sunday, Grand Prix, 2 p.m. sharp local time. The weather forecast as of recording of this video, although it was really yesterday I made this slide, 22 degrees and partially cloudy. All right, so moving on to the tires for this weekend. As always, this is a track that we have the softest tires in the Pirelli range. So soft C5, medium C4, and the hard C3. Now, taking a look at who are the best qualifiers at this track. So number one, we actually have Max Verstappen, who's out-qualifies his teammate 88% of the time at this track. Median qualifying gap, just over a tenth of a second, just under a tenth and a half of a second. Number two, Fernando Alonso, not a surprise. He's on these kinds of lists quite often. He's out-qualified his teammate here 83% of the time, median qualifying gap 0.25 seconds or so. And then number three, also at 83%, is Nico Hulkenberg, median qualifying gap 0.22 seconds. Now, moving on to the other side, worst qualifiers. Worst qualifier at this track is Lance Stroll, 17%, not much of a surprise. Median qualifying gap up to positive 0.49 seconds. Number two, bit of a surprise here, Lando Norris, 25%. Median qualifying gap is 0.308 seconds. And then number three, this one might be a bit of a surprise, but it is the home hero Sergio Perez. Again, 25%, and that median qualifying gap is a 0.242 seconds. So finishing up this preview with some predictions for the podium for this weekend's Grand Prix. First, I'm going to go with Lando Norris. I think he's going to have a good recovery weekend from what was a not great weekend at Coda. This is a really high downforce track in terms of setup. And looking at some of the recent high downforce tracks we've had, Singapore, Hungary, McLaren were very, very strong there. But again, with the altitude, it is a bit of an unknown. Number two, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. I think the race pace for the Ferrari should be very, very strong again this weekend. And I think, again, this is a track with a lot of slow speed corners. We know the Ferraris are pretty strong in those kinds of corners, and which there are a lot of. So I think Charles Leclerc P2 is a good prediction. And number three, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. Given his record at this track, best qualifier at this track in terms of percentage, and also most wins at this track, I believe he has 5. He won 2017, 2018, and then 21, 22, and 2023. Again, this is a track he loves very much, but we've had a bunch of these kinds of tracks recently this season. Netherlands as well as another one, Kota, another one, where he's done a very good record, but hasn't won those Grand Prix. So again, just because the Red Bull is definitely not as strong this year as it is in past years, I'm not quite sure that Verstappen is going to have the car underneath him to be able to challenge for a win. But that being said, I do still think he'll be able to make podium. So there you go. There's my preview for the 2024 Mexico City Grand Prix. Looking forward to it, I guess. It's generally the racing's not great because the dirty air is pretty bad, and usually the race is going to be decided at the first corner or in the pit stop. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.